Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing amazing. Does anyone else remember American Apparel? Recently, I was doing a massive closet sort out and I found not one, not two, but 3 American Apparel tennis skirts, American Apparel disco pants, American Apparel shorts, an American Apparel top that I'm wearing right now, and I was transported back to a time when American Apparel clothing was like the coolest thing you could possibly wear. This caused me to wonder what they're doing now. I mean, I genuinely really liked a lot of their stuff. The clothes were great quality, they've lasted my wardrobe all this time, so I looked them up and thus began a journey down the American Apparel rabbit hole. I mean, this brand has experienced so much controversy and scrutiny since I remember first learning of its existence in 2012 or 2013. But despite all this, it stayed strong until about 2017. Today, I want to deep dive into the rise and fall of this iconic brand and how the founder, Dov Charney, went from dictating high street fashion to sleeping on a mattress in his factory designing White Lives Matter shirts for Kanye West. Okay, whistle-stop tour of American Apparel's history. Founded by Dov Charney, who I'll be referencing a lot, and by the way, isn't even American, he's literally Canadian. American Apparel started off in 1989 as a wholesale clothing brand. Charney would import clothes from America to Canada and sell them out of his university dorm room. In 1997, Dov moved the operation to LA, where he began selling blank t-shirts to screenwriters and designers. A hop, skip, and a jump later, American Apparel were designing their own clothes and was one of the most influential and controversial clothing brands in the world, opening its first physical store in LA in 2005 and in the following decade expanding to have over 260 stores in over 19 countries, including, but not limited to, England, Ireland, Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Israel, China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, Mexico, and Brazil. This rapid overexpansion was criticised by press and consumers alike, and Dov Charney himself has stated that whilst he felt this expansion was necessary to raise awareness of the brand, there were maybe a dozen stores we shouldn't have opened. The brand leaned heavily into being ethically produced, made in America, and sweatshop free, whilst staying relatively affordable. In 2014, you could get a women's top from anywhere between $16 to $150, so whilst pricey, there were also some affordable pieces. American Apparel's advertising describes the brand as capitalism working, and when the brand first started, Dov would pay his garment workers 2 times the standard wage at the time. This was a bold move, but it worked out well, as the early 2010s was the beginning of a kind of collective realization amongst consumers that sweatshops were bad, and the reason Primark can afford to sell t-shirts for £1 is because of the horrific exploitation its garment workers experience. American Apparel is key to the indie sleaze aesthetic, a fashion aesthetic popularized in the early noughties and 2010s as an aesthetic response to the Great Recession. Indie sleaze is considered as being defined by affordable clothing, amateur visual styles, and unabashed hedonism. American Apparel's grunge and hipster-inspired fashion, combined with its relative affordability and capitalism done right messaging, made it the it brand during a time of economic hardship. Nyahalo Tucker writes for Varsity, "The backdrop of a recession, economic instability, and fear of the future is what propelled indie sleaze." American Apparel's aesthetic is so simple yet so clearly defined, making it fairly accessible to the Tumblr girlies. Having been born too late to live through the indie sleaze glory days, the American Apparel I experienced came as part of the Tumblr soft grunge revival. This was the peak of fashion, by the way. I dress like this to this day. This incarnation of the brand is defined by black and white tennis skirts, grid print matching sets, pastel colours, and Tumblr it girl Joanna Kutcher. If you weren't around during the meteoric rise of American Apparel, I'm genuinely really sorry. This is when fashion peaked. Like, this is my lived experience. The vibes were so good. So at this point, American Apparel's flying high. Besides the insane amount of profit they were bringing in, being ranked number 308 in Inc.'s list of fastest growing US companies in the United States, with a 3-year growth of 440% and 2005 revenues of over $211 million, selling $125 million of domestically manufactured clothing outside of America in 2007, and genuinely dictating fashion for the Tumblr girlies by 2013, American Apparel were engaging in a lot of genuinely really cool philanthropic and political work. The brand vocally campaigned for the legislation of gay marriage in the USA, releasing a line of t-shirts in collaboration with GLAAD, spoke out against unfair, harsh immigration laws, and featured Isis King, a transgender model, in their campaigns in 2013. American Apparel stated that they wanted to hire more trans-sexy models, which is a lovely sentiment wrapped up in horrible phrasing. However, like I said, American Apparel was one of the most controversial clothing brands in the world at the time, so let's dive into what led to its fall from grace. American Apparel's advertising has been incredibly controversial since the brand's conception. Their ads are iconic for a reason. They're incredibly stylish yet simple, and that Helvetica text is instantly recognizable. The brand has been praised for its honesty in advertising, depicting models with minimal makeup, refusing to airbrush or digitally alter their models' bodies, and working with a diverse range of races and body types. Julie Zerbo writes for Dazed, a far cry from the polished, traditionally glamorous ads that big fashion houses were putting out at the time. There was no obviously done hair and makeup, professional sets, or recognizable faces. Instead, there were a lot of beds, couches, white walls, and provocatively posed models that looked like the girl next door. These were not women you would see walking during Paris Fashion Week. Bypassing the system of traditional agency-signed models, American Apparel openly opted for real girls, ones that Charney spotted on the street or that worked in the brand's stores. Conversely, Jaime Wolf writes for the New York Times, "These pictures have a flashbulb-lighted, lo-fi sultriness to them. They look less like ads than photos you'd see on someone's MySpace page." These adverts were genius in the sense that they made consumers feel a sense of achievable aspiration. In a time when we were beginning to talk about body positivity and unrealistic beauty standards forced onto us by fashion houses, American Apparel were giving us a very achievable and realistic goal. Anyone could be an AA girl. Their adverts in the Meet Blank campaign featured a short paragraph about the model's personal life, such as Meet Trudy. Trudy is a St. Louis national who's been traveling for the company since 2009 as a store consultant. Her hobbies include vintage buying as well as singing and dancing to 90s R&B. This level of connection with the fashion model was unheard of at the time, with most fashion houses deliberately casting models we know nothing about to create an air of sophistication and unattainableness to their brand. American Apparel's ads draw you in with the achievable and personal nature of their campaigns. However, the ads were also incredibly controversial due to their increasingly sexually charged nature. Dubbed voyeuristic, overly sexual, and offensive and irresponsible, many of American Apparel's ads were banned in the UK. Jaime Wolf writes that these aren't ads that you'll see on the side of a bus or in famous magazines. American Apparel places advertising in the blogosphere, linking from pop culture sites like Gawker.com to photo essays and copy on its own website, on the back pages of alternative newspapers like The Village Voice, LA Weekly, or The Onion, in slightly obscure art hipster publications like Purple Fashion and Fantastic Man, and in the profane anti-PC lifestyle magazine Vice, whose louche tastes and attitudes run in close concert with Charney's. Iris Alonso, American Apparel's creative director at the time, was quoted as saying that Vice is our Vanity Fair. Although the brand deliberately pushed the envelope with their sexual adverts, this counterculture movement was kind of needed in fashion at the time, and the sleazy, obscure nature of the brand ironically only boosted its success. Their later ads do feel creepy, sleazy, and misogynistic though, particularly ones like this, where a disembodied model, only identifiable by her crotch, is strewn across our screen. Highly sexualized faceless models are a mainstay in American Apparel's adverts, and they always feel pretty voyeuristic and grimy. It's worth noting that founder Dov Charney features in several American Apparel adverts besides young female models, most notably in this après-ski ad, which has an overly sexual implication to it. In spite of criticisms of their overly sexual advertising though, American Apparel decided to go even further, hiring well-known adult actors and glamour models such as Sasha Grey, Lauren Phoenix, and Charlotte Stokely as models in 2009. Never back down, never what? Adult entertainment trade magazine Adult Video News cited the American Apparel website as one of the finest softcore websites going. Part of me does find it alarming that a brand which set out to depict honest, unairbrushed models went in this direction. When I compare early AA ads to later ones, they definitely become more curated, more sexualized. The women featured in them become increasingly disembodied in increasingly compromising positions. They become thinner, the initial honesty seems to fade away. We're left with glamour models in a kind of performative messiness. Yeah, Sasha Grey's pubic hair featuring heavily in a mainstream fashion campaign seems like a cool and subversive feminist idea, but we can tell that the ads have lost their authenticity. Everything seems more performative, more curated. Remember how I said anyone could be an AA girl? Well, Dov Charney's explanation of how they found their models isn't necessarily true. Writing for Jezebel, former model Jenna Sowers alleges that Charney has repeatedly lied about the brand's casting process, stating, "The story that American Apparel tells about its models, that they are employees, friends of Dov Charney, real people and never professional models, is one much cherished by the company. It's also a lie." She goes on to say, American Apparel's gaggle of utterly conventionally beautiful and slender women are not factory workers. They may be friends of Dov, but many of them do not work for the company he founded. You will not bump into an American Apparel model working the register at the store nearest you. The only American Apparel paycheck they've ever cashed is for the time they spent modelling for the brand. She also claims that she knows several models who moonlight for the brand, and that whilst it is true that American Apparel does not cast models in a traditional way, i.e. through agencies, the models cast are certainly professional models, and some have been for over a decade. There are obviously several points towards this being an incredibly unethical practice. Firstly, as Jenna Sowers states, when models are reached out to via their agency is able to negotiate fair compensation for them. It is ironic that a brand which focuses so heavily on fair pay for their workers allegedly simultaneously use backdoor tactics to cast their models. As well as this, it's extremely disingenuous and potentially damaging to the consumer. This draws on the idea of curated authenticity that we talked about in the previous section. This brings me to this feeling I've been having recently in the wake of photo dumps, Be Real, the paradoxical nature of following a trend to come across as authentic online. I honestly think it's more damaging to have this curated authenticity. Sometimes seeing an unachievable stick-thin model on the runway or a ridiculously airbrushed image in a magazine, whilst of course still bad, can sometimes be less damaging than a brand disingenuously stating, "Our models are real people, they're my friends, they're just like you," when in reality it's not the truth at all. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. In 2009, it was alleged that Dov Charney made store managers across the country take group photos of their employees so he could personally judge people based on looks. He is tightening the AA aesthetic, and anyone that he deems not good looking enough to work there is encouraged to be fired. Charney issued a denial in which he stated that it was required that employees have good fashion sense, but this does not necessarily mean they have to be physically attractive. In 2010, Gawker published an article which alleged that a disgruntled former store manager had come forward to them with evidence that American Apparel employees were based on their looks. Unattractive employees were encouraged to be fired, and here's the kicker, the brand had a full-body head-to-toe employment policy, which stated that employees must send a full-body head-to-toe image to higher management. The article states that hiring and firing is now largely based on employee photos. The article alleges that district employees who don't like someone's photo may refer to them as off-brand rather than overweight or unattractive, though the effect is the same. So in this section, I'm going to be discussing the sexual harassment allegations against Dov Charney. I will not be talking about them in detail, but I will be discussing the themes of sexual harassment, so trigger warning for that. I will put time codes, you can skip forward, do what you will. Now for the event that resulted in American Apparel's board organising a takedown of Charney as CEO, the numerous sexual harassment allegations against him. Numerous articles have slated Charney as a creepy sexist predator, with the New York Times calling him a barely restrained id and Jezebel referring to him as a misogynistic troglodyte. And looking back on his interactions with models like the ad we touched on earlier, this is no surprise. Charney has been accused of sexual harassment dozens of times and has faced several lawsuits over the years because of this behaviour. American Apparel lawyers issued a statement about the allegations, saying that the company discovered voluminous evidence of Mr. Charney's sexual liaisons with employees and models. The company's court papers added that at least one of these numerous encounters took place at his office. A CNBC article on the topic states that company investigators also discovered Charney had kept videos of these sex acts on a company server. The company said he had also sent employees emails with pornographic videos and photos and accused him of using ethnic slurs against certain employees. It is alleged that Charney also sexually harassed a journalist interviewing him in 2004. Whilst never found guilty of sexual harassment, it's really important that we remember the insane power imbalance between the founder of, at the time, the biggest brand in the world and the young models working for him. Charney has gone on record to say that he believes that sleeping with people you work with is unavoidable. Though, as Guardian writer Hadley Freeman writes, he wasn't accused of sleeping with colleagues, he was accused of sleeping with employees. He claims that none of the allegations are true and they were planted by the board who wanted control over the brand. In the same interview though, he confirms that he still sleeps with employees and would only sign a non-fraternization agreement temporarily, so you be the judge. In a 2017 interview, Charney stated, "I'm not going to be a victim of sex shame tactics. This obsession that I should be punished for the advertising is fascistic and anti-woman. I will express myself as I always have done." In 2014, Charney was officially ousted by the company's board and replaced by a female CEO, Paula Schneider. Schneider wasted no time in trying to turn the brand's reputation around, running a pro-woman ad in April 2015. The ad reads, "Hello ladies. Women have always been in charge at American Apparel. In fact, women make up 55% of our global workforce. Sorry, guys. And an even higher percentage of our leadership and executive roles. This structure is incredibly and unfortunately rare in the corporate world." However, it seems that Dov's insistence on his character being so closely incorporated with the brand caused Schneider's attempts to detach the brand from him to fail, and American Apparel began hemorrhaging money. In August of 2015, American Apparel issued a statement warning investors that they would be unable to maintain operations for another 12 months. By September, the brand was in freefall, struggling to avoid bankruptcy, and in October of the same year, it filed for bankruptcy. In January of 2016, it rejected a $300 million takeover by two firms strongly aligned with Dov Charney. And finally, in January 2017, the brand was bought for just $88 million by Gildan. So what are American Apparel and Dov Charney up to today? While American Apparel does still technically exist, it's moved pretty far away from the original brand identity. Gone are the sexual ads, the spandex outfits, and the tennis skirts, replaced with plain t-shirts and crew necks. Gildan moved American Apparel's factories out of America, and whilst for a while you could choose between buying American-made clothing, which had a $4 to $10 premium, and globally made items on their website, to quote glossy.co, "Over 9 months in 2019, the Made in USA shop grew anemic, with fewer and fewer American-made styles clearly labelled. American Apparel had a series of deep discount sale periods around the 2019 holiday season, before announcing on its website in January 2020 that it was moving all e-commerce operations to Amazon. The same month, the Made in USA shop vanished completely from American Apparel's website." I feel like partnering with Amazon was the nail in the coffin for American Apparel's image as an ethical brand. As far as relocating their factories from America, it is absolutely true that you can make clothing sustainably and ethically outside of the West. It's a huge misconception, in my opinion, built on xenophobia, that all clothes made in countries like China and Taiwan are made in sweatshops and that sweatshops can't exist in the West. In fact, there are tons of reports of garment workers in Los Angeles experiencing unsafe working conditions and being paid 5 to 6 cents per piece of clothing. However, there is evidence to suggest that Gildan does, or at least in 2017 when the article was written, use sweatshops. Sarah Lee reports to The Guardian that Gildan is one of the worst companies as far as labour exploitation goes, with reports of sweatshop conditions, overworking employees, and employees developing coughs and illnesses as a result of working in Gildan's factories. Whilst the American Apparel website still boasts that all pieces are ethically made, we can never know for sure. So what happened to Dov Charney? In September 2017, Hayley Freeman interviewed Charney for The Guardian, visiting him at the factory for the brand he is still CEO of to this day, Los Angeles Apparel. In 2017, Charney was sleeping on a mattress in his factory, but apparently he's now living in a 20-room mansion in LA and collaborating with Kanye West, so it seems like he's actually doing okay for himself. Los Angeles Apparel seems to make clothing that's very similar to that of OG American Apparel, so the 2014 soft grunge indie sleaze spirit lives on through these pieces. Thank you so much for watching. Do you remember American Apparel? Is this your first time hearing about it? Talk to me in the comments below. Hope you had as much fun watching this one as I did making it. I'll be back soon. See ya!